I'm Linda Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Shelter Nova Scotia. I've been in the position almost 8 years, but I've had an interest in homelessness for just about 50 years. When I was in grade 9 at Woodall Junior High in Sydney, Nova Scotia, Mr. Henderson came into our classroom with a shoebox full of newspaper articles. We all had to pull one out and write an essay, and mine was on homelessness. And I had no idea what that was, but it took over my life. Shelter Nova Scotia is best known for its two shelters, Metro Turning Point and Barry House. Next year, Metro Turning Point, which is our shelter for people experiencing homelessness who identify as male, will be open 50 years. And originally it was supposed to be, and it's called an emergency shelter for a reason. It was supposed to be an emergency service. So 50 years later, it's busier than ever. But just as essential and impactful are our other facilities, which would be Neely House and Fleming House, who are working with people who are transitioning from correctional institutions back into the community, and the rebuilding in Herring Cove Apartments, which are supported housing for people who once experienced homelessness. The sector that's growing, the newest sector that we have that is growing significantly is what we call our community sector. And in November of 2021, we opened what we call the Housing Hub, or the Hub is what we've been calling it. It's in our old administrative offices, and we were able to do that because the Murphy Foundation is paying the rent in our new administrative offices. And the Hub opened to serve the people, the great number of people who are now outside in tents. So what we have there is a service where people can have a shower, do their laundry, get something to eat, and just have somebody to talk to. It's a microcosm, I would say, of what we hope to do next, which we're calling Metro Turning Point 2.0. What we're noticing the most, but no surprise, because anecdotally we've known this all along, it's the whole social inclusion bit. And people are just so alone in the world. It's amazing the number of people who are alone and just want to sit down and have coffee or water or something with another human being. And one of the saddest things I ever saw, and I've been doing it a long time and I've seen a lot of things, is one Saturday night I was at Metro Turning Point. A man came to the door who used to be at Turning Point, but he had an apartment somewhere and he didn't have a television or a telephone, and he wondered if he could come in and watch Hockey Night in Canada because playoffs were on. And we had to say no, because we only have room for the people who are staying there. And so when we talk about our new Metro Turning Point 2.0, yes, it would have emergency shelter, yes, it would have supported housing and a service center, but opportunities for camaraderie would be a huge part of it too. When COVID first happened and we didn't know what was going to happen, I was down there again, and this man came to me and said, when we run out of food, can you make sure that the old guys still get fed? And I said, we're not going to run out of food. And he said, no, when we run out of food, can you please make sure that the old guys get fed, because we're stronger? And again, I said, we're not going to run out of food. He said, just promise me. And I said, okay, I promise you. And we didn't run out of food because Brunswick Street Mission continued to make food and bring it over. Often, people who are experiencing homelessness haven't been to the dentist for a long time, so soft food is important. And the other thing that's important to know is that what we think might be a treat, like cookies or donuts, is not a treat for them. What's a treat for them is good, healthy food. I mean, we have our treats after we've had our solid meal. So donations of cookies and donuts can be disappointing, let's say. I think what people don't always understand is how people experience change in different ways. And so right now in Halifax, I think everybody knows, or in Nova Scotia, that there's a housing crisis. And that means people who used to be able to afford a place to live can no longer. There are people who have jobs, who are going to work, and are living in tents because they can no longer afford the apartments that they once had. We've had, in the 80s, when I first started doing this work, there were 240 rooming houses in HRM. The last count a couple of years ago, there were 12. So for people who are working for minimum wage or are working part-time, it's impossible these days for them to find a place to stay. So who's experiencing homelessness has really changed over the years. It's not kind of the stereotypical person that we like to blame. It's people who are working.